The Dark Tower. Is it as bad as all the reviews I read for it going in? Let's talk about it. Welcome to Durbania, I'm Durbin, and this is my spoiler-free review for The Dark Tower. To answer the question, was this movie as bad as all the reviews I read going into it? Nah, I don't think so. I don't think it was as bad. In fact, I had a lot of fun watching this movie. It's still not great, but I thought it was a lot of fun. Now, if you take this movie and you compare it to War for the Planet of the Apes, to Logan, to Wonder Woman, and some of the other great movies that have come out here in 2017, yeah, this movie definitely has a great fall way beneath all of those movies. But I went into this movie with the lowest of low expectations. I mean, a reviewer on YouTube I greatly respect gave this movie an F. So going into this movie, I could not have gone into it with lower expectations. And I think that might have been the key. That could have been the reason that I really truly enjoyed this movie. So while that may not make this review start off great for The Dark Tower, if you're planning on seeing this movie on the big screen, lower your expectations and you will have a fantastic time. So first, let's hit the positives. One of the big positives I enjoyed about this movie was just kind of the lore of this movie. I mean, they had a little allusion to one of my favorite fantasy stories, which I thought was really, really cool. And, you know, I like the whole lore behind the Dark Tower, this great big universe that is filled with all different kinds of worlds. I was just so curious about it, you know? So like there was like a really cool supernatural magical element to this that I really enjoyed on top of the whole gunslinger cowboy thing. Oh yeah, you take fantasy, you take sci-fi, and then you throw in a gunslinger cowboy thing? I mean, that's a good recipe right there if you cook it just right. Another really good positive of this movie, Idris Elba. I have read the first two books in this series. Now, it's been a long time since I've read those two books, but I do remember enjoying them, and I thought Idris Elba embodied the character of the gunslinger.
There are no gunslingers. Not anymore.
This dude was rolling. I'm watching this movie, and I'm thinking, I want to be a gunslinger when I grow up.
I cannot shoot with my hands. I shoot with my mind.
The other thing that I just really liked about him was his journey through this movie. I mean, the whole thing is he is filled with malice towards the Man in Black. All he wants is vengeance, which is not the gunslinger's creed. I mean, he's supposed to be a knight, basically, and be full of honor, but instead of protecting the Dark Tower, that's not his primary goal. His primary goal is kill the Man in Black for all that the Man in Black has taken away from him in his life. So that was really cool to watch him rediscover himself in this movie. And the thing I like about Idris Elba as the actor, I felt like there were a few key moments in this movie where I could see recognition on his face, whereas he's with Jake and he's re-seeing his vision, he's re-seeing his purpose in life and the purpose of who and what he is. Like those moments where he would just remember what he's supposed to be doing. Like I could see that in his face in a few scenes, and I really enjoyed that. So I really did enjoy his journey throughout this movie of rediscovering his purpose. This leads into my next positive of the movie, Jake. And you needed Jake to be good. I mean, this movie kind of rests on the shoulders of Roland and Jake. They have to have good chemistry. It has to work. And we have to see Roland kind of reluctantly taking on this mentor thing, but then liking this kid and taking on this mentor thing gladly. And Jake lost and scared in this world, all kinds of crazy things, having crazy visions, trying to figure out, am I meant to save the world? What is going on? What is wrong with me? And so what you needed was that good relationship between Roland and Jake where they could balance each other out, where Roland helps Jake to calm down and takes Jake to a place where he could figure out his purpose and figure out these visions. And Jake kind of, you know, I mean, he's a kid. So that heart of a child, you know, that honesty, that earnestness kind of reminding Roland what it is he's fighting for.
Your world might be gone, but mine isn't. If you let that tower fall, billions of people die.
Do they have guns and bullets in your world?
You're gonna like Earth.
You gotta have these two characters balance each other out, and I thought that was great in this movie. I think Roland and Jake had great chemistry on screen. I think that worked really well together. Key moments where, you know, we had to get emotion from Jake. I mean, I felt like I got it, so I thought Jake was a great character. Then you have Matthew McConaughey, the villain of this story, the Man in Black. I thought he did a pretty good job in that role. The character itself was almost more sinister than Matthew McConaughey, but Matthew McConaughey still had some really sinister parts in this movie as he, you know, portrayed it. I mean, he was just, this character was the devil. I mean, he had people dying and he'd walk right up to them in their death and just be like, "You're waiting to see what's on the other side? There's nothing. There's nothing now. Die." And like, he had these like really evil moments. I mean, then like great scenes where he would take people's shame and use that as a weapon against them. And he used his magic even flippantly, and he used it for destructive purposes for his own amusement flippantly. I mean, this dude, for all intents and purposes, he was the devil. And I thought it was well done and a good villain for this. That said, there are definitely some negatives in this movie. And one of the big negatives for this movie, it really is just the overall feel. I mean, I had fun with it, so it's kind of hard for me to go through this movie and pick on this scene or pick on that scene. So I'm just going to tell you the overall feel of this movie. It felt like a TV movie over a cinematic experience. And it just, if this movie was a Netflix original and popped up on Netflix, I think a lot of our expectations would have been different. And, you know, experiencing it on the smaller screen like that, and it being made for that screen, it would have felt more right. And I think there would be probably more of a positive response coming from critics and reviewers. I'm just kind of guessing there, because that's kind of what I felt when I was watching that. Because, you know, if you've read the books and you've been waiting for this movie, you're probably expecting something big, huge, and epic. And like I said, I liked the lore, and it felt like there was a deep lore and mythology and all kinds of cool stuff behind it. But it felt like, as much as you could feel that that was there, this movie kind of just really touched the tip of the iceberg. It didn't really go super deep in all of that. I kind of felt like I had a few more questions. It didn't hit all the things that I really wanted to hit. I think if this movie added a good, compelling 10 or 15 minutes to it, because it was only an hour and a half, I mean, give me a compelling extra half hour of world building, and I think it could have made this movie feel a bit more epic. But as it was, it didn't feel like a huge cinematic movie to me. It felt like a made-for-TV movie that was put on the big screen. And I think that is kind of my biggest negative. An example of that for me is the final fight scene between Roland and the Man in Black. I won't give anything away, but when you watch the final fight scene in Wonder Woman, you know that's CGI, but it still looks good, and that movie was amazing. And so it's like, yeah! This movie, it was like, okay, that's just not up to par. Now, it wasn't bad. It didn't look terrible, but it just wasn't up to par. You know what I mean? Back to if this was released on Netflix on TV, would have been fine. But this is a cinematic thing on the big screen, so we've come to expect more out of that, and I don't feel like it gave that more that we expect. So I think that's the real problem with this movie is, I think a lot of the expectation for this movie is epic. We cannot wait to see this Stephen King epic adaptation. And true, it has some epic parts and epic moments, but I think there's something in the overall feel of the movie that doesn't just feel super cinematic. It doesn't feel as epic as it should feel. It feels kind of like it's held back by something. And so I think those are my biggest negatives with the movie. In the end, I'm going to give this movie a B. I do think it's a solid B movie. I don't think you need to rush out to see this one this weekend. Otherwise, I don't know. I think you could wait to see this movie when it's on Netflix or rent it on Redbox or something like that. I mean, not terrible movie, but not all that it could have been or should have been, but I had fun. So if you saw The Dark Tower, what are your thoughts of this movie? Make sure to let me know in the comments. While you're there, hit that subscribe button to become a Durbanian. Next to the subscribe button is that bell. Click that bell. That way you're notified the moment I drop new videos. Check out my other movie reviews, theological analyses. I have a lot of fun with those. Trailer reactions, ranking videos, and other great things I have here on this channel. Like and share this video. I'm Durbin. Thank you for checking out Durbania.